Meanwhile, Michael Bloomberg is out with two new ads today. Now, the former mayor is fighting back against a 2016 tape that he says has not been fully shown to the American public. We heard him out on that and wanted to play the full tape for you to put it in the context that he says it deserves. Michael Bloomberg talking about farmers a few years back. Take a look.
Think about it. The agrarian society lasted 3,000 years, and we could teach processes. I could teach anybody, even people in this room, so no offense intended, to be a farmer. It's a process. You dig a hole, you put a seed in, you put dirt on top, add water, up comes the corn. The information economy is fundamentally different. You have to have a different skill set. You have to have a lot more gray matter.
All right, I don't know whether that helped his case or, to his critics' point and Bernie Sanders' point, made him sound very condescending, very arrogant, very anti-farmer or dismissive of farmers. But the Bloomberg campaign is saying he wasn't talking about modern farmers and trying to counter that the tapes with the policies and saying that he is consistent on this subject, that times change and the information processing world we live in today, that has changed as well. Let's get the panel's read on this. B. Riley, Wealth Management Chief Investment Strategist. Paul Dietrich, we've got Geltrude and Company founder, best-selling author. Dan Geltrude, and Independent Women's Forum Senior Policy Analyst Patrice Lee Unwuka in Washington, D.C. Patrice, ending with you, begin with you. Did that more extended version of those comments allay anyone of the view that Michael Bloomberg was being very dismissive?
No, I don't think it did, Neil. I think, unfortunately, this follows along a series of former gaffes or maybe tapes in the past that Bloomberg has made comments that are upsetting different constituencies, and I don't think that it's going to help. I mean, you know, suggesting that the agrarian, he's talking about past agrarian societies compared to today, it may seem to those who actually make a living with through farming that he has no clue what he's talking about. So I don't think it helps him.
You know, Paul, it is interesting these tapes come out day by day, almost like a Pez dispenser release, the more serious his campaign looks. So are we going to see more of this?
We are going to see more of this. And I think this is kind of a crazy media thing. I live on a farm. I'm from the Midwest. You know, what he said is, it's not, I do not believe that's going to be insulting to farmers. It's insulting to the elites here in New York and
well, if you're
Washington,
telling a farmer, you just plop something in the dirt and watch it grow.
Well, you know, it's a simplistic view, but everyone knows that's
the very
basically
definition,
how
that's
it
the
works.
Definition of condescending.
Exactly.
Right? Exactly.
Well,
we don't know.
Yeah.
Well, you're a farmer, Dan, in
yes.
New Jersey, and I'm just curious. And you're right. We could pick, you know, words that he has said and many other candidates said years ago, and this shows that he's a serious candidate if they keep pulling this stuff out. But it's there.
Look, Neil, he is only a serious candidate because he's got $60 billion. He's not charismatic. Those comments that he made right there goes to the heart of what everyone is going to say about him. He is not a man of the people. He's an elitist. He's so far removed from everyday life. He really doesn't know what it's like for the average American, and I just don't think he can buy his way through that.
All right, well, that's the rap he gets a lot, Patrice, and I'm just wondering, though, and we were talking about it during the break, I mean, it's all about the math, and you know, to get to, you know, 1,991 delegates, and given the apportionment voting that goes on here, we get 15% of the vote, and you share the delegates, there is a good case to be made that no one is going to have enough to close the deal on a first ballot. I raised that with Jane Sanders, who positioned it to say, yeah, but if my husband enters the convention in Milwaukee with the most delegates, that should be enough. But that isn't how you secure the deal.
No, I mean, you're going to have to figure out how to bring together coalitions of individuals who voted for your opponents. And unfortunately, Mike Bloomberg is, from what I can see, he hasn't been reaching out across the aisle to any of the other candidates. I think the other candidates, in fact, are trying to position him as the wrong choice entirely in burning potential future bridges. So it's going to be difficult for him. Now, will bringing Hillary Clinton on the ticket help him? I think absolutely not. Those are just the rumors. Well, no. I mean, I don't think that she has the star power, the credibility. She certainly has denigrated her own standing with a lot of Democratic voters, not to mention the general electorate over the past few years, after her loss. So, you know, I don't think it's going to be a blockbuster ticket. I think it's going to be a busted ticket, frankly, with the two of them on it.
All right, hang on to that here. Meanwhile, Elizabeth Warren, she's going to be holding a separate rally in Nevada, which could be a chance for her and Joe Biden to make up some traction in a much more diverse state. But will the vote count troubles just end there, especially if they're the same caucus issues that Iowa had? Ellison Barber in Nevada with the very latest. Ellison, what do we know?
Hey, Neil. Yes, Senator Elizabeth Warren will be here having a rally to try and convince her supporters to get out and vote early, like we've seen a number of other candidates do this last weekend. It is day 3 of early voting here in Nevada. Caucus day is Saturday. Right now, Senator Bernie Sanders is leading in the polls by a fairly large margin in this state. Candidates, they spent a whole lot of time on the ground in Nevada throughout the weekend, talking to voters, rallying support for early voting, and encouraging staff and volunteers to keep going out, keep knocking on doors and getting more voters, more friends out to the polls. Nevada Democrats say over 18,000 people voted on the first day of early voting. There are 4 days of early voting in all. Nevada is an important state. It is the first in the West Caucus and the first real indication of how candidates will do among minority voters. Iowa and New Hampshire are 90+% white. Nevada is a whole lot more diverse. It has a large Hispanic population. It looks a lot more like America. It is also a big deal because Nevada has caucuses, and after the mess in Iowa, everyone is watching to see how this state will do with them. A couple of weeks ago, Nevada Democrats scrapped plans to use the same reporting app that caused so many problems in Iowa. They say they will have paper records, and the electronic calculator that they are using is off-the-shelf technology developed and monitored and reviewed in recent days and weeks by Google. Neil.
All right, Ellison, thank you very, very much. By the way, Nevada has 6 electoral votes. It's considered increasingly like a purple state, so it's a jump ball. Meanwhile, 2020 betting odds forecasting a win for the president, but almost the exact same lineup as before. He wins the electoral vote, but he loses the popular vote. In other words, gets more electoral votes this go around, fewer popular votes this go around in percentage terms. But again, our system, our republic, calls it the winner based on the electoral vote. So that's the way you win or lose these things. So right now, with his odds improving, and it's just based on betting, Paul, what do you make of that?
Well, I think what you were saying is right. I think we're going to see a contested convention. I think Bloomberg could well win. I mean, look, the DNC is broke. And so Bloomberg is the only person who can fund an election to go dollar for dollar against the president.
But would Bloomberg change the math on an electoral win for the president? Yes. Again, maybe not a popular vote.
And this is why everyone's looking at this thing wrong. You're basically going to, if Bloomberg wins, you're basically going to have 2 Republicans running in this election. Everyone believes that he is a conservative Reagan Republican on economics and on business. The stock market would probably go up if he won. He's just a liberal.
Have you seen his tax plans?
No, but still, that doesn't bother people on Wall Street.
Well, it might, right, if he sticks to it. Right?
Yeah, but it's just still, I believe the stock market will go up. Also, he will win Florida, the key state in terms of that, and he's going to get the support of a lot of moderate Republicans who are more liberal on social issues.
All right, it could happen. You're right.
And this would be a unique election with 2 Republicans running against each other.
Right, but the Republicans is a bit of a stretch.
He's going to take the Democratic vote no matter what. They hate Trump. They're going to vote for him. If he gets a substantial...
Unless he ticks off the Bernie Sanders vote, which takes me to you, Dan, and just this notion that he does have some views. Well, he might be the least of the tax hikers in the bunch of the Democrats. If he ticks off Bernie Sanders voters, that he gets a nomination over Bernie Sanders, they just stay home, don't they?
Yes, I think that's what will happen, Neil. Look, I don't think Mike Bloomberg is a Republican, in my view, in any way, shape, or form. What I think happens here is Bernie Sanders assures that Donald Trump gets reelected. Why? I believe if he ends up being the nominee for the Democratic Party, he will not beat Donald Trump because the nation is not ready for a socialist just yet. On the flip side,
for someone like a Bloomberg,
they could be, but Neil, I think Bernie Sanders supporters stay home and don't support
Mike Bloomberg. That's the big question, right?
Bloomberg.
Patrice, I mean, you're well connected. A lot of these folks would they feel that if it were Bernie Sanders, he entered the convention with the most delegates, just not nearly enough to declare a majority, loses on the first ballot, his chances end right there, right? I mean, for Bernie Sanders, it's either first and goal or nothing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine a Bloomberg-Sanders ticket, and I don't think that the Sanders supporters, after 2016 in particularly when they were burned so badly by the establishment and by the Hillary Clinton campaign, would be so willing to put all bad feelings aside and certainly support Michael Bloomberg. And frankly, let's look at the electorate themselves and their positions on different issues. The Democratic electorate has swung so far to the left that they are embracing a lot of policies that Michael Bloomberg has had to defend in defend against his past record in recent days. They're not going to fully embrace him. I think about communities of color. I think about particularly socialist candidates. When you talk about policing, when you talk about his record there, they're not going to just turn a blind eye to that just to say, well, let's beat Donald Trump. I think they would stay home.
We'll see. Way too early to gauge, but we'll see. They will be back with us momentarily. The government has indicated we've got a plane coming to get you guys out of there, and you're not keen on it. Why not?
No, I tweeted days ago that I wanted the U.S. government to stay out of it. The offer is we're going to put you on buses with other people who haven't completed their quarantines and have not been tested for the virus. We are then going to put you on a plane with all these people and take you back to the United States. And, because of the risk you still pose due to that situation, we're going to stick you in another quarantine.
All right. He was Skyping me from his suite on that boat, indicating that he was not going to follow strong suggestions from the State Department that he take a cargo jet back to the United States. So best we know, he did not and opted not to do that. This is the University of Nebraska Medical Center briefing is scheduled for 2 p.m. Eastern Time with an update on those 300 Americans evacuated from that Diamond Princess cruise ship. Now, Asian markets were originally getting a little bit of boost on this, namely on the idea that the worst is behind, as we've heard that before, and that the number of cases reported seems to show a slowing momentum. But again, it changes by the day. Our markets, of course, closed for the President's Day holiday. Back with our panel now, Paul Dietrich. We've also got Dan Gelcher and Patrice Lee Onwuka. Patrice, looking at this situation and the Americans on that ship who really weren't keen on getting off that ship because they're going to have to be re-quarantined in the United States. I could understand in this fellow's case with his wife that they were not keen on doing that. So they're stuck in a limbo. A lot of people are. And I'm just wondering how our government addresses that.
Neil, I mean, it's a good question. I think, though, that the priority for the U.S. government should be to ensure that those who could be exposed, are not going to be a health risk to the larger population. Whether that means quarantining them, that's an understandable course of action. The challenge with this coronavirus is that there's still a lot of information that's unknown. For example, how long is the incubation period? Is it a week or is it 3 weeks, which is what I understand it could be as long as? And they're expecting that with the rising temperatures, this virus will really die out because it's really traveled through cold temperatures. But we're in February here in the East Coast. Does that mean that that's going to be true in 2 or 3 months from now? And frankly, I don't trust all the information coming out from the Chinese government and Chinese news sources because they have an incentive not to drive panic in their financial markets as well as in their larger populace by underreporting. So the American government has to take steps to protect the American citizenry.
Yeah, well, you should probably go change your mind on that because I agree with you. I've been very suspicious of even the economic data we got out of China. It always reminds me of the John Lovitz character, like, yeah, we're growing at 10%. That's the ticket. And they're not. So when they give these assurances about how they're handling this virus, they might very well be handling it just fine. But I get worried. Now, having said that, Dan, and I'll raise it with both of you gentlemen, we're seeing some signs of companies dipping their toes back into the manufacturing waters. There are Volkswagen, Airbus, Toyota that are reopening shuttered factories. They're not all of them, and not for full-time hours, but they are beginning to do that. What do you make of that?
Well, this is clearly a positive economic sign, Neil, but I agree with what you said before. This is going to be a day-by-day. And what this is showing us as well is how important China is in the supply chain, because
sure.
if this really has a major impact on China and it's going in that direction, what is going to happen to product around the world? You know, seems like the whole world has their eggs in one basket here in China, and that's going to need to change. And maybe there's going to be a lesson here for the rest of the world.
In the markets, right? I mean, their markets are bumpy, I grant you, but ours have held up just fine. Interest rates are going as a lot of money goes to our debt. What do you think's going on?
Well, so far I think there's been 2,200 deaths from this worldwide. That's terrible. But to put something in context, since September of last year, over 8,000 people in the United States have died of flu. And so everyone, I think Wall Street has believed that although there will be some disruption in the supply chain, that in general, this is something that's manageable and will have a very minimal impact in the long term with the U.S. economy.
All right, we'll watch it closely. I want to thank you all. We hope you're right on that. The whole Bloomberg thing, I don't know. But the other stuff, I think you're good. All right, in the meantime.